In this lecture, we will learn about the last few parts of the urinary system. The ureters are two slender tubes, each about 10 to 12 inches long and 1/4 inch in diameter. Each ureter runs behind the peritoneum from the renal hilum to the posterior aspect of the bladder, which it enters at a slight angle. Here you can see how it enters. The urinary bladder is a smooth, collapsible, muscular sac that stores urine temporarily. It is located retroperitoneally in the pelvis, just posterior to the pubic symphysis. If the interior of the bladder is scanned, three openings are seen: the two ureter openings and the single opening of the urethra, which drains the bladder. The smooth triangular region of the bladder base, outlined by these three openings, is called the trigone. The trigone is important clinically because infections tend to persist in this region. In males, the prostate gland, part of the male reproductive system, surrounds the neck of the bladder where it empties into the urethra. Here you can see the basic structure of the female urinary bladder and the urethra. The bladder wall consists of three layers of smooth muscle, collectively called the detrusor muscle, and its mucosa is a special type of epithelium, transitional epithelium. Remember that from tissues. Both of these structural features make the bladder uniquely suited for its function of urine storage. When the bladder is empty, it is collapsed, 2 to 3 inches long at most, and the walls are thick and thrown into folds. As urine accumulates, the bladder extends and rises superiorly in the abdominal cavity. A moderately full bladder is about 5 inches long and holds about 500 milliliters of urine, but it is capable of holding more than twice that amount. Here you can see the position and the shape of a distended and an empty urinary bladder in an adult man. The urethra is a thin-walled tube that carries urine by peristalsis from the bladder to the outside of the body. At the bladder-urethral junction, a thickening of the smooth muscle forms the internal urethral sphincter, an involuntary sphincter that keeps the urethra closed when urine is not being passed. A second sphincter, the external urethral sphincter, is formed by skeletal muscle as the urethra passes through the pelvic floor. This sphincter is voluntarily controlled. Here you can see the two sphincters. The length and relative function of the urethra differ in the two sexes. In men, the urethra is approximately 8 inches long and has 3 named regions. The urethra of the male has a double function. It carries urine out of the body, and it provides the passageway through which sperm is ejected from the body. Thus, in males, the urethra is part of both the urinary and reproductive systems. In women, the urethra is about 1.5 inches long, and in its external orifice or opening lies anterior to the vaginal opening. Its urinary function is to collect urine from the bladder to the body exterior. Micturition, or voiding, is the act of emptying the bladder. As noted, two sphincters or valves, the internal urethral sphincter and the external urethral sphincter, control the flow of urine from the bladder. Ordinarily, the bladder continues to collect urine until about 200 milliliters have been accumulated. At this point, stretching of the bladder wall activates stretch receptors. Impulses transmitted to the sacral region of the spinal cord and then back to the bladder via the pelvic splanchnic nerves cause the bladder to go into reflex contractions. As the contractions become stronger, stored urine is forced past the internal urethral sphincter and into the upper part of the urethra. It is then that a person feels the urge to void. Because the lower external sphincter is skeletal muscle and is voluntarily controlled, we can choose to keep it closed and postpone bladder emptying temporarily. Here you can see the key points. This will be the last lecture for the urinary system. Make sure you know this one and be ready for the test coming up soon.